Hello everybody, Julie again. Today I have a special treat for you. I'm going to introduce to you my great friend and mentor, Sue Lilly. Now, Sue Lilly is very well known in many fields, with crystals and colour therapy and many other things, but what she's really loves and what she's amazing at is astrology. She is the person I go to when I need help or I need to see patterns, because she sees patterns. And sometimes with my own clients, I get a little bit stuck and I think we need some extra help. We need to see what the pattern is here. And so Sue often helps me. So I'd like to say, welcome, Sue, and just introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon. She says, remembering that it's afternoon in Bahrain. And thank you for a lovely introduction, Julie. Yes, I've been an astrologer for well over 40 years. So yes, it's one of my things that I wouldn't say it came easily, because it was a lot of hard work at the beginning, but it's one of the things I really enjoy. However, as you well know, I'm used to doing personal readings, for clients and people who are stuck or confused, specialising on the karmic and the spiritual parts of their personality. And so when you asked me, would I look at 2022, I thought, right, different hat, great fun, let's get in and have a look. Right. So
we're in for a treat, aren't we?
Well, it's really quite interesting, because initially I thought, well, we're looking at a worldwide thing. So although I put the chart up for London, which I usually do, I thought I'd better put the chart up for Tuvalu and one up for New York, just to see what the difference was. Because if I'm talking to people who are coming from all over the world, I need to make sure what I'm making sense to everybody. And ironically, the chart actually didn't change very much. And I suddenly realised that since 1582, when basically the Gregorian calendar was adopted, every new year, we always have the sun sign is Capricorn, and all throughout the world, the sun sign, the ascending sign is also Libra, which on the surface sounds really, really good. Capricorn, nice and solid, very, very legally sound. And similarly with the Libra and ascendant, very legally sound, very balanced, very fair. But of course, that's being all positive about it all. And of course, the other flip side of the thing is that it can become very restrictive and not allow for growth or change. And certainly from a leadership point of view, it means that potentially leaders can get very extreme views. In other words, basically not very good leaders. And of course, at the moment through the world, we've got a mixture of both.
We really have.
And so it's crazy when it's like, for example, the UK's chart starts on the 1st of January, about 1801. But at least America's starts in July. So at least they've got a bit of a change from the repeating 1st of January pattern. So I started looking at, okay, so what is the thing that does change from year to year? If that doesn't, then what on earth does? And what actually changes is the moon sign. Now, when you're looking at this type of astrology, the moon represents us, the people, the Joe Bloggs, the ordinary person in the street. And in 2020, the moon sign was Aries. In 2021, the moon sign was Leo. And this year, the moon sign is Sagittarius. And this is really important. Aries is a very selfish sign. It's like, I'm okay, you can go and do what you like. I'm not going to do anything to help you. Leo is a very bossy sign and can actually sort of start saying, well, yeah, I know this needs doing, but I'll tell you what, you go and do it. So we've had 2 years of this very self-centered energy going through the pattern of the year. But this year, it's Sagittarius, and this is very different. And I noticed a lot of people who've been talking about the start of the year have picked up on this. Sagittarius is a very generous, very outgoing, expansive sign. So for us Joe Bloggs in the world, this year should be different from the last two. It should be different in as much as it's less self-oriented. It's more into the groups. It's more into humanity. It's less about, I'm okay, so I'm not going to help you. It's like, okay, we're in this all together. And I think a lot of people have been saying that this is the one thing people haven't realized, you know, particularly with COVID, is we're in this as a world. We're not in this as a single country. And this is one of the nice things about seeing the Sagittarian moon pop up on the 1st of January. And it's sharing nature, and the nature of Sagittarius links into the planet, astrological planet Jupiter. Now, Jupiter, a lot of people have picked up on this. And it's a very expansive energy. It's very creative. It's now just moved into Pisces. So it's a lot of artistic, musical, and really, really so different from what it has been for the last couple of years. However, and I caught a fellow astrologer on this the other day, it's all very well saying it's expansive and it's a lot of new beginnings. It's a bit like somebody giving you a box of chocolates the size of a tabletop. It's all very well having lots of opportunities. It's all very well having lots of stuff. And if you haven't got boundaries, it just becomes completely overwhelming and everything just goes crazy. And ironically, the Jupiter makes a contact with the planet Neptune, which is often associated with things like plagues, want of a better phrase, and things like that. And it makes an exact link in March. And so people have been saying, oh, well, you know, this is great. It's going nice and expansive. It's going to be wonderful. And of course, me, stick in the mud, is saying, well, actually, this might be actually the time when COVID decides to go ballistic.
Oh.
So that's the other side of it. Because unless there's boundaries, so countries that have been putting restrictions in place, masks in place, all that sort of thing are going to be fine. But a certain country that lives next door to me, I live in Wales, therefore I live next door to England, they've done nothing. They haven't even got a test and trace system that works. So you can see that it's going to get awfully personal for people living in the UK in March. Yeah. But for the rest of the world who've got some really good boundaries and structures in place, they'll be fine, because that's when Jupiter and Neptune work to their positive.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll be all right in Bahrain. They have very good.
Yeah, so you should be absolutely fine. But it's very interesting that very few people actually picked up on the fact that you need the boundaries for the Jupiter to be, you know, a box of chocolate that's big enough to enjoy, but not so the fact that you just goes completely over the top. So it's going to be really interesting to see as we go through March, actually what happens in the world and how the world deals with this energy. One would like to think that art and music become a bigger part of how we live. But it's also can see that without the boundaries, it may actually not be so good for some places.
Right.
So I started thinking about, well, okay, what's the bottom line in all this? You know, we've been in this now for 2 years virtually, and it's like, what's going on? And the place that always starts, I tend to start this when I'm doing personal readings as well, is what's happening to Pluto. Now, Pluto is the furthest planetoid that there is in the solar system. And ironically, it was demoted from being a planet in 2006 by astronomers. Yeah, of course, astrologers thought, this is bad news. Because it's a bit like saying one of the most reflective, powerful packets of energy you're now saying isn't real. So the astrologers are thinking, oh, hell, wait for it. What's going to happen now? And lo and behold, in 2008, we had the banking crash. And of course, that was a worldwide phenomenon. And ironically, we also had swine flu came back.
I remember that, yes.
Yeah, and swine flu was the same infection as Spanish flu, what they called Spanish flu, in 1919, 1920, 21. And you're thinking, okay, what else is happening? And ironically, the astronomers are now thinking of reclassing Pluto as a planet.
It could be a good thing.
And you're thinking, yeah, what's going on here? I don't think it can come soon enough, because you've got to acknowledge when you've got a packet of energy that's that powerful, you've got to acknowledge it, basically. And one of the things, because Pluto's been in Capricorn from this time, is that anything that is healthy is usually absolutely fine. But anything where the roots of it are fundamentally unstable, or they're not healthy at all, in other words, they don't have enough anchorage to actually move forward, Pluto will come along and just completely upend it. I mean, it does this in people's lives, and of course, it's been doing this to the world energies since 2008. Yeah. And so societies that are fairly grounded and are fairly balanced have actually dealt with it quite well. And then most of those societies that have done really well are the ones with women in charge. Let's be blunt about it. Iceland, New Zealand, they've done really well. Yeah. Ones where men with issues have been in charge have not done so well. They're not naming any names. So where money has been for the boys, and where people have disregarded families, the poor, the sick, the disabled, all that sort of thing, are the societies that have found it a really big struggle. And of course, COVID's been part of this pattern. COVID leaves Capricorn in January 2023. So a year's time. Yeah. And it's a bit erratic. It leaves and it comes back, and it leaves and it comes back. So I suspect that COVID will be with us for another year. But maybe not in the same way, because of what's happening with what we spoke about earlier with Jupiter, that's being a lot more open and a lot more generous, a lot more sharing. But I think it's going to be with us for the next year, until basically Pluto disappears out of Capricorn. And so, like I do with people, I start looking back. Often with people, I say, oh, and what happened to you 12 years ago? What happened to you when you were 30 or something? So I started looking back on a more global thing, and actually found out that 3 Pluto cycles ago was the Black Death.
Wow.
Yeah. And 2 cycles ago, it was a lot of religious changes happened in the world. Things shifted. And 1 cycle back was the American Revolution. So when it has changed things, it's changed things, different areas of society as it's gone through. And so, of course, when it came through into Capricorn, it started changing the things that people saw as their security. Because that's why the banking crash, of course, that was all about mismanagement of money and resources and things like that. And so I started, again, looking back to see what else has been going on, particularly for this year. And one of the nice things about this year is some of the faster moving planets have also, Mars has also moved into Sagittarius. And so again, you've got much more interest in doing broader things, a little bit more exploring, wanting to broaden the knowledge, maybe getting back to traveling a bit more. The downside of it is that boredom gets set in if there's not enough to do. So one hopes that we've got the plenty to do. And so you can see that there's definite shift this year. So one of the other things I looked at was the eclipses, because they're also something that affects all of us. All right, some parts of the world more so than others. And there are only 4 eclipses this year. The first one is a partial solar eclipse at the end of April, and it's visible in most of the Southern America. The 16th of May, there's a lunar eclipse, and it's probably going to be visible in Bahrain, and possibly some parts of Western Europe as well. Then we go to 25th of October, there's a partial solar eclipse that's again visible most of Europe and Africa, India and China. And then the last eclipse of the year is the 8th of November. And this is a lunar eclipse, and it's probably visible everywhere in the world apart from Africa and Europe. So we miss out on that one. And the eclipse cycle for this year is mostly linked to finances and values, people's values, and the deep healing that's needed, because they're all in Scorpio and Taurus. Now, the eclipse in November, actually in my notes, I put it down as a stonker. It really is quite a shift. Because what tends to happen is all these cycles are fine as long as they don't start coinciding. And when you start getting 2 or more of them coinciding, then it gets to be a bit interesting. And so we get towards the end of the year with a really big one. And Uranus makes the eclipse is right with where Uranus is at the moment. Uranus is a pattern breaker. It's the thing that if something is unhealthy or unfair, the energy will go in and completely shatter it apart. Yeah. And ironically, it is linked to this 1st of January cycle that we keep on being in with the Libran ascendant. It's a spiritual level of it. And so that eclipse in November could herald quite a dramatic shift for everybody. And anybody who's got a birthday near the 8th of November, it's going to be personal.
Wow.
And so in the year, we've got a shift in March, and then we've got a big shift at the beginning of November. And this is worldwide. This is not a personal thing.
Wow.
And the eclipse cycle is about 18 years. And so I looked at when the last time the eclipse was in Scorpio Taurus and when Uranus was involved. I eventually got there, and guess what? I ended back in the early 1500s.
Oh, wow.
And Pluto was also in Capricorn. So we have, as residents of planet Earth, we have lived through this once already. So there's basically nothing to be scared of because we've done it before.
Yeah,
yeah. We've done it before. But it's interesting, it was down when this last pattern was with us. So hence, I think the looking forward, we're thinking this will break the pattern that we've had, certainly for the last 20 years. So hopefully things will go back onto a much more humanitarian base for most people. And I think for folks as well, that it won't go back to how it was. I think that's one of the most difficult things that people have to accept, is we're not going to go back to how it was, because that time has gone. We cannot get it back. But we have got new patterns here. And as a planet, we've done it before. And it's really just moving with it and taking the opportunities that we've now got on offer.
Wow.
And with COVID should be coming to an end as we go through this year, certainly into 2023.
Yeah.
I suspect it will be completely gone gone as in its present form by mid-2024. So we're getting towards the beginning of the end, let's put it that way. You know, or the end of the beginning, or whatever the phrase
Yes.
Yeah. And so
we're coming through the worst.
Yes. And I think countries where they've been sensible are going to come out far better, and have put their priorities straight. People before money.
Yes. That's so important.
So important. And
I can say here with the vaccination program, everything. I was listening. There's a saying, isn't there? Nobody's safe until everybody's safe.
Yeah.
So the Western world, the richer countries, need to be more humanitarian and share.
Yeah.
More.
That's right.
Yeah. And then we'll all be in a better place. Yeah.
And I think with that Jupiter Sagittarian energy that we've got this year, the penny should have dropped. They should have realized that by now. That's the way it goes. Like I said, there will be certain places that will just sit there and do nothing.
Yeah.
You know, it's all right for me to say. Where I live, I said I'm really grateful. Sometimes I live in Wales.
I've always wanted to live in Wales. So.
Yeah, they've got a very, very good testing program, and I think their vaccination program, they boosted everybody now. I think this was the last day they boosted everybody, and there's been mask wearing has never stopped. You know, so yeah, we just leave that one hanging there. So for the moment, yeah. But that's my take on 2022.
Wow, we have a lot to think about. But it's also very hopeful. I mean, I would be very interesting to see what happens in November with them. When you say there's a stonker, I know that means there's a stonker. I've known you long enough. But we have something to look forward to. We have hope again, really.
Yes, we have hope again. And I think the last 2 years, you can see why there wasn't.
Yes. And we're all weary now. I mean, people are weary. And we never thought for 5 minutes that it was going to be this long. I always remember sitting, I was incubator at the time, when they started to close borders, and I was like one of the last flights out, and I've not been back since, but we were thinking, it'll be over in a few weeks. And here we are, almost 2 years later. And we think, when? And we are weary, we're tired. And I think humanity doesn't do uncertainty well, and we're uncertain because we can't make plans, because
that's right,
we plan and then it's changed. And I think that is, for me, that's been one of the hardest things, because I can't plan, and the uncertainty. But you have made, because I know you so well, but this reading has really made me feel much more confident and more peaceful.
And I think hopeful, because if you take hope away, you damage people at a very deep level. From this is therapist talking now, a very deep level. And I think it's like, I can understand now, having looked at astrology the last 2 years, of why this year is so important, and why so many people in their writings about how they think 2022 is going to be can see that potential of expansion and things moving forward. But I think, yes, there's still got to be some boundaries for the moving forward to really work properly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I feel better for listening to you. I'm sure many of our listeners are going to be very happy about this. I feel uplifted because I have been worrying recently, and I know my clients the anxiety levels are very high, and they're worried, and the isolation that people have been in, and the not being able to be with people, we are now starting to see the effects of that. So it'll be nice for me to say, we are coming through the worst of it.
Yeah.
It's devastated people's social social behaviors, and the anxiety levels are really high. I've really noticed. So hopefully this, if they listen to you, they're going to start feeling a little bit better too.
Yeah, and because it's all this Sagittarian, Jupiterian energy, it's very, very good for communicating with other people.
Yes.
And like I said, if you're in a country where there are suitable boundaries, rather than going absolutely nuts crazy and, like some places have, then, you're safe.
Yes.
Basically. And I think it's, I remember thinking at the very beginning, that Chinese, may you live in interesting times. I don't think any of us realized that we were going to be doing that.
No, we really didn't. I'm not sure that I would like to go through this again.
No, I know. No.
We've learned a lot about ourselves and humanity, and I'm still learning, but wow.
I think we've also learned a lot about power.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot about personal power, and realizing doing stuff where you can make a difference is very important.
Yes.
It might not be grand, universal, worldwide statements or doings. It'll be little stuff, with your immediate neighborhood, with your families, that sort of thing. But we've also seen politicians misuse power, and we've seen what that can actually do.
Yeah, that has been very
yeah, and I think that's also very interesting, of how damaging that can be when it gets very extreme.
Yes, which is happening.
Yeah.
Ooh, so really, Sue, you've given us lots to think about, lots of hope, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in November. Oh, you'll have to be really when it gets.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting in March as well, because I've got a funny feeling. I can't remember when Easter is this year. It must be around that time. That's when you actually get the Jupiter Neptune coming together, because although it's very brief, because by that time Jupiter's going quite a speed, it's quite significant. So
it'll be interesting. So maybe we'll be calling you back in March.
Yeah.
Let's see what's going on.
Yeah.
But, really, really appreciate this today, and thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. Yeah.
And if anybody would love to have a personal reading with Sue, I highly, highly recommend it. I can't recommend it enough. She unravels things for you, and she sees the patterns, and she helps my clients often. She helps me. I would really recommend it, and we'll put the details on the YouTube here. Do you want to just say where they can contact you? Do they have a contact?
Yes, I have a website, which is Sue Lilly, SUELILLY.co.uk, and you can find stuff about me and links to me from there. Is probably the easiest way to get me.
Yeah, and you can contact me as well, because I'll always put you
sure
in touch. If you like what you've heard on this video today, please do like on the YouTube, and please do subscribe. It is free to subscribe, and then we can keep you posted. And also, if there is anything that you would like Sue to talk about, or me, just message me and we can look at things. Sue is amazing at doing this. She loves this. She's amazing at unraveling patterns and things. So, so I really recommend a session with her. So again, thank you very much, Sue. And I really, really have enjoyed it. I feel much better. Gisam does too. I have to.
Yeah. You're very welcome. I must admit, I enjoyed doing the unraveling.
Brilliant. So it's been interesting for you too. So that's good. So I'm glad. All right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you. And please, like I said, everybody, please subscribe to the channel. We really would appreciate it. Thank you.